Dr Harlan Cloete is an expert on local government. He joins us now. Dr Cloete, good morning to you, sir. Does the position of Deputy Mayor really have much legal power? Do they play a role in the legal scheme of a council?
Good morning, Stephen. Good morning to the viewers. Yes, the Deputy Mayor performs a role. It is provision made in the Constitution for that. Our system of governance is an executive mayoral system, and that person can be supported by a deputy. And so, like it says, like a deputy like a deputy chair, that person performs the functions when the mayor is not or is not available. But in some instances, like in the municipality where I live in, we do have a deputy mayor, but that deputy mayor is given a specific portfolio. So it is not just deputized for when the mayor is not there, but actually given a function which holds for better governance, because the deputy is kept busy with something specific.
I mean, it reminds me a little bit of how the Constitution treats the position of Deputy President. They are the acting president if the president is out of the country, and then they have whatever job the president gives them. It's a bit similar to that.
Yeah, but like I said, it could be, local government is complex. There's different portfolios, different responsibilities. And so if you really want an effective governance system, it helps to give the deputy certain functions and responsibilities. In my municipality, for example, the deputy mayor takes care of finance.
Okay, no, that does then make sense. I presume that, in the president's case, if the president is out of the country, the deputy president is automatically sort of acting president. It's not the same for mayors, though. I mean, if the mayor of Joburg travels to Ekurhuleni, they're still the mayor of Joburg, I presume.
Yeah, no, exactly that. But I'm saying, that the mayor could delegate certain responsibilities, to the deputy. But in many cases, sometimes it's a political compromise, specifically within coalitions like we have. If the two positions that the parties normally go for is the mayor and the speaker, which is really functional, strong positions. The deputy normally is almost like a compromise position.
It's interesting because I can remember an acting president making important decisions, including to invade another country. I can remember acting premiers. I think in one case, quite recently, actually, an acting premier had a cabinet reshuffle, which is quite amazing if you think about it, on many levels. I've been scratching my head trying to remember if deputy mayors have ever done anything really consequential. And that's not to say they're not playing an important role or fulfilling an important function. I just can't remember any cases where a deputy mayor did anything that turned out to be really important. Maybe that's just my own sort of view of local government at the moment.
I think if you look at the functions and the powers of local government, the council, the executive and the legislative function sits with the council. And so in our case, the council at local government have got more powers, like, for example, the individuals. So it's as a collective that the council holds power. So the mayor, although he or she is still the executive mayor, that person still reports to council. Like, for example, the budget. The mayor himself cannot pass the budget. He cannot pass the IDP, which is the Integrated Development Plan. And so local government is a bit more complex. It's different, and there are different nuances, specifically within coalition governance.
I mean, you talk about coalitions, and there's been so much discussion about what's been happening in Gauteng, where for the first time, I think since 2016, so for the first time in 8 years, the ANC is now in power really in all three metros. I mean, I suppose you could say there's actually an Action SA mayor in Tshwane, but still they hold 5 of the mayoral committee portfolios. And we see at the same time there was, I think, a presumption, or let me put it differently. Fikile Mbalula said, Secretary General of the ANC, he thought the national coalition should cascade to local government. And that hasn't happened. It's gone the other way. Does that matter for governance? I mean, we seem to have quite a complex situation now where the DA is working with the ANC in some places, but not in local government in Gauteng.
I quite find it bizarre. It's very clear that the Gauteng ANC thinks different, the provincial ANC thinks differently to national, because if you were serious, I find it surprising that Fikile Mbalula makes that statement, because leadership means that you assert your authority and say, let's emulate what is happening at the national to local, because local is where the action really happens. For me, I always say that democracy happens at the door of the local municipality. And so if we are really serious about governance in this country, then we must get local government right. And if we can ill afford the instability at the local sphere, because like I said earlier, if you've got political instability, that inevitably spills over to the administration.
I mean, and this is, the ANC has made the point in its own sort of principles around coalitions. And in fact, that committee, if I recall, was chaired by a former premier in Gauteng, David Mukura, that the ANC should provide the mayor, if they're the biggest party, in a council. And they do that in Ekurhuleni now, they do that in Joburg now, they do not do it in Tshwane, where the person who is the mayor works for a political party whose founder said he entered politics to remove the ANC from power. I suppose what I'm really asking is how long can the Action SA ANC coalition, working relationship, whatever they're going to call it in the end, actually last in Tshwane? And we have local government elections in 2 years.
I think Action SA, looked at the scoreboard and looked at 2016. For me, this is the first salvo in local government elections 2026. So Action SA want to get their hands on power. You remember what was not so long ago when Herbert Mashaba said he would never, ever, ever work with the ANC. And, so a week is a long time in politics. And so it's not about principle, it's about positions. Unfortunately, if we are going to be pragmatic, one would have thought that the ANC and the DA would have the political maturity. But it also says something to me about the political leadership of the ANC at the national, that it cannot assert its authority on the provincial ANC in Gauteng. Because it is very short-termish. If we are really serious, that's what I'm saying, if we're really serious about stabilizing governance, then we must get local government right, because that's where, our local governance is, for a lack of a better word, in a mess.
Shouldn't we also put some blame on the DA? Their starting point was a demand that Celia Brink be returned as mayor, and I realize it was the ANC that first removed him, but I wondered about their sort of negotiation strategy, if maybe that was a bit of a mistake.
It's about I think, compromise. It's about being pragmatic. It's about making demands. Sometimes, the DA is known for that, making public demands so as to put pressure on the party. You remember that letter that was leaked, and then the president's reply in the days leading up to the build-up to the national government of national unity. And so it's I think negotiation like this calls for cool-headed political leadership, maturity, and also preventing grandstanding. And so I think both Helen Zille and Fikile Mbalula are strong individuals, but somehow, South Africans demand stable governance, specifically at the local sphere.
Dr. Harlan Cloete, good to hear from you again. Thank you. An expert on local governance. As you can hear, we'll bring you that council meeting. Junior Kamalo on standby for you once that actually begins.